Howdy, y'all. Active Asshole on Pills here. Got a couple of New Year's resolutions coming up that I'd like to follow through with if I can ever stop procrastinating enough to actually engage in any constructive self-improvement. All right. First on my agenda, lose some weight. I put on at least 30 pounds in the last 6 months. Need to get it off. Second on my agenda, get back to where I can bench 400 pounds or more. Yes. Uh-huh. Get my old college muscles back. Third on my list of things to do in the coming year, get a better job than the one I currently have, because that job at the factory is not going to pay for my student loan debt. Anyway, that's not what I'm here to talk about tonight. What I'd like to talk about is the right wing's current fixation, ongoing fixation and justification for and euphemism euphemisms toward the rule of right-leaning dictators like Augusto Pinochet and Francisco Franco. You know, you get into an argument with right-wing reactionaries. Yeah, Frank proposes that we start calling them right-wing reactionaries, seeing as how they took the word libertarian and construed it for through the use of logicide for their own nefarious ends. But it seems right-wing reactionaries have they've been offering a mixed response to me when I throw when I throw Augusto Pinochet and the application of laissez-faire economics through the use of subversive activities through the Chicago School of Economics people up in their face. I seem to get a mixed response from right-leaning. Well, I'm not even going to call them libertarians anymore myself, but from right-wing reactionaries. And some of those responses are, they're like a soft justification for Augusto Pinochet, and others are usually historically, actually they're both historically revised responses that I tend to get from them. One being that Augusto Pinochet and his systematic torture and oppression of the loyal opposition in Chile. I learned to pronounce them both ways while I was in college, but his systematic oppression and ruthless use of state-sponsored kidnappings and tortures during his regime were somehow the lesser of two enemies compared to what the preceding President Allende's would have been. And the second response I tend to get from them is one where they say, where they go down the whole, Augusto Pinochet, he was all about Austrian economics until he switched back to Keynesian economics until he stopped listening to Milton Friedman. And either of those responses, they're just wholly dishonest on their part. Well, either dishonest or they don't know their history, and considering their penchant for rewriting history to suit their ideological beliefs, I'd say it's more the second than the former. But here's the problem with both of those responses by right-wing reactionaries. First problem, the problem with the first one. Sorry. Problem with the first one is that many of the neoclassical economics pushing laissez-faire Friedmanite peeps we're harping on for at least a few years before they had established a narrative at least a few years before the Chicago school funded coup d'état of President Allende and the subsequent imposition of the junta government of Augusto Pinochet. They harped on for several years before it happened that Augusto Pinochet's rule is better simply because, oh, Allende, he would have taken away their right to private property, and there would have been torture and state-sponsored torture and oppression. And even though Allende had been elected with a plurality of the vote in a three-way race for the presidency of Chile during his heyday, and they throw that crummy justification out there, but the thing is, there was no evidence that Allende was doing any of these things, or even planning to do any of these things. And I think it's telling that Allende, instead of calling out the troops in Chile, the Chilean army when things were looking bad, rallying the troops that supported him, he kept to the. It speaks a lot about Allende's character, the late Allende's character, when he chose not to put forward, not to call out the troops so as to keep in standing with the long tradition of democracy in Chile, and and also after Augusto Pinochet had been installed in the coup d'état as the president of the junta government, he instituted the very things that the Friedmanites and the Austrian schoolers and the Paultards, and the conservatives here in the United States had harped on that would happen if Allende were allowed to stay in power. And not only that, but the deregulatory policies and the deregulatory policies and the economic shock therapy, as Milton Friedman referred to it, doubled the poverty rate from 19 to over 42% in Chile, and there was 600% inflation rate. There were massive business cycles that bankrupted large parts of the country, and I think it's telling that Augusto Pinochet, after the initial failings of the one thing that he did not privatize were the copper mines in Chile. That's probably the one thing he had going, that he really had enough common sense not to privatize. But then you look at this bullshit notion that this bullshit notion thrown around by the American right today, that they practically give sweet nothings to Augusto Pinochet, saying, "Oh well, he's he went to Keynesians for a while in order to fix the problem," and it's just. But the thing is, in spite of at least 20 years of left-leaning governments having been elected to the government of Chile as a backlash against the dictatorial practices and state oppression of Augusto Pinochet. In spite of this, Augusto Pinochet's, I'm sorry, I got something in my nose. My nose is itching like crazy. But Augusto Pinochet, the man, I don't even know how to. I'm having a little problem articulating here. I'm sorry. I don't edit my videos before I put them out here, and but Augusto Pinochet, they say that he turned against Austrian economics and economic shock therapy, but in reality, the tradition of having an almost completely privatized country lived on for many years after his initial power as the presiding president over the junta government of Chile. That it persisted, and even today, the people of Chile are having to pick up the pieces. Chile, either way you want to pronounce it. People told me to pronounce it Chile when I was going to college. What can I say? And some wanted to say pronounce it Chile, but yeah, don't. But well, I guess I can sprinkle one other thing onto the whole Augusto Pinochet cake. He had the most comprehensive concentration camp system of any dictator since the Second World War. Okay, there. I'm just gonna go with that now. And cut.